Do I have volume? There we go. Technology likes to mess with me. Alrighty, so I am Carol Crafty Grandma, and we are going to finish up our 2-bottle wine tote today. Here is the exterior. It has a nice little zippered pocket on the front. Everything's all done on the inside. We've got some nice fusible fleece so that there's bottles don't clank together and don't clank to the outside. We've got a nice little leather accent on our handles. And today we are going to finish up the inside of the bottle. We're going to put a snap on this sucker and we're going to put it all together. And we'll be good to go. So, set that off to the side a little bit. Maybe not. Looks like we're going to have a kitty cat come visit. We're going to set it off to the side over there. That's a little too tall. Let's drop it. There we go. And of course that means she's going to try and go sit on the bag now. Okay, so when we finished part 3, we had assembled the first side of the interior of the lining. So now we are going to do the other side of the lining. So we take our lining. This is our little tab in the middle. It also has fusible fleece on it so that it does not allow the bottles to clank together. We are going to measure down 3/8 of an inch. Usually you're too low, now you're too high. This camera stand and I just do not want to get along very well. All right, just like we did with the other piece, we are going to use the little ruler here because it has 1/8 inch tick marks. All these little black lines are 1/8 inches. So we want to measure down 3/8 of an inch and draw a line. Excellent. Now we're going to take our center area. We're going to line it up so it's straight along the fabric, straight along the edge of the fabric. And 3/8 of an inch down from the top. Put a couple pins in here. And if you watched part 3, no, I have not cleaned up my pins from yesterday, from the last part. They are still in a stack on the floor over there. And apparently all over the magnetic bowl. All right, there we go. I think I got them all. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put 2 pins in. And just as I mentioned in part 3, this would be a very good place to baste these 2 pieces together. I'm not going to. You can. And it would be a very good idea, especially if you're new to sewing or even just new to bag making in general, because things will shift. I'm going to pull down my second piece of lining, and now we are going to line it up. So that we have this all nice and straight. Couple more pins. And now we are all nice and attached, so we will go over to the sewing machine. I still have my 1/4 inch foot on here, so that's perfect. I don't need to change my stitch length because because it is set for a standard stitch length. I didn't do any top stitching or anything while we were away, so everything is just fine the way it is. I like to start at the top whenever I'm doing something like this. I don't know why, that's just me. I try and start at the top when I can. I do not need to do a back stitch or anything like that because this area is going to be in a seam later on. Make sure to pull your pins out before you get there. Straighten out your fabric. Make sure everything's laying flat. If you have a walking foot, this would be a nice place to use it because you do have multiple layers of fabric, and the bottom layer of fabric is going to move faster than the top because it's got feed dogs pulling it. And a walking foot puts feed dogs on the top also. Bingo. So now we need to press this. There goes my binding. Okay, so we're going to press both sides. If you watched part 3, we did the exact same process with part 3, with the other side on part 3. We press everything closed. That loosens up all of the fibers in the thread and in the fabric. So press everything closed. And now we are going to press one piece, not the center divider, just one piece of the exterior fabric that doesn't have any fusible fleece on it. We're going to press it out. And now we're going to flip everything over and press out the other one. So this is our piece with the fusible fleece in it. Everybody else is facing outward. Okay. Now I'm going to open this back up so it goes back over the top of the fusible fleece, and I'm going to press this seam open as best as I can. That way when we attach the facing here in a minute, we won't need to worry about the seam getting in the way. Let's take a look at this. So this is the one we did in part 3. We attached it. And now this one we have done the same thing. And we now have like an eye shape. So the next thing that needs to be done is we need to attach the facing to the top of this piece and not get any of this fabric caught up in it. get things to stay out of the way, I'm going to use some clips. Just to fold our stuff out of the way. And then since I have directional fabric, we don't want this to be like this. It would look silly. So we want to make sure it's going to end up like that when it's sewn on. And I pressed the seam open so that it goes to both sides of the seam. And I want to try and keep it that way so we don't get too much bulk in this. I'm going to put pins on either side of the seam just to keep that seam allowance out of the way. And the rest of it I'm going to do as I go. All right, back to the sewing machine. Keeping everybody straight, 1/4 inch seam. Now here comes the tricky part. And I mentioned in part 3, and it does say in the directions that if you want to, this would be a good place to use a zipper foot so that you don't have any part of the foot over on the left-hand side of this fabric. I'm going to continue trying to do it. I'm going to be stubborn and just do it this way. Now, let's see if I can get over this seam without too much of a mess. Yay, made it. Alrighty. Get these clips out of the way. And now I'm going to press towards the facing, so towards the piece of fabric I just put on here, because we are going to do a top stitch around the whole thing when we're done. And that way when we do the top stitch, it will stitch over both pieces of the seam allowance and give us a little more strength in our seam allowance, or in our stitch, I should say. It'll give us 2 seams, 2 stitchings. Now, because I'm using canvas, it is being a little bit more difficult to press. It's like, I don't want to go that way. I want to go towards the light fabric because, you know, that would be easier. Less resistance. But I made it do what I wanted it to do. Okay. Back over here. Let's talk about the fun part. Not to there yet. Press the seam upwards and top stitch narrowly. You will have a flappy sort of. All right. So now we have to match up. Get the pins back over here. we are going to sew around the edge, the 3 edges of the bag. And because we have this piece in the middle, we kind of have to fold it a little, and it's not going to want to stay. It's going to be all kinds of fun. So the first thing we need to do is match up our seam. And you can probably see, now I know you can, that the top piece of fabric is a little bit longer than the lining. And that's fine. I'm going to pin and we have the seams facing upward and seams facing upward on that side. We want to make sure the seams are both upward in both spots. And we're going to pin a little bit more as we go around. And we get down here. All right, I am not going to mess with pinning the bottom. That we will work out. No, actually, I might. Let's see. If you want to be difficult, I may need to. There we go. All right. I've got the center section folded in half, and now I am going to pin it together so it is stuck. And it stops bouncing around like it is. There we go. All right. I'm going to do up here. Make sure our seams match so that when we do our top stitch, everybody's happy and straight. Okay, now let's do the best we can with our seams down here to get them open. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to iron. I'm going to come over here and try and press these a little bit more because they were both pretty good. And now they're both trying to open up. So let me convince them to stay put for a little bit. All right, there we go. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine. And around the 3 sides we go. Now since our fabric is probably about 1/4 of an inch, it is. So I'm going to line up. You know what? I'm just going to cut it. Where's my long scissors? I get rid of this pin for a minute. And I'm going to trim down the facing. And then put the pin back. And I'm going to go over to this side and do the exact same thing. All right, much better. Shorter. And the top is going to be in a seam, so we don't need to back stitch, back tack, whatever term you want to use. All right, I am going to use my handy dandy gadget to keep my seams all pointing upward. And we are going to be cutting out the corners by 2 inches, so it doesn't matter if you're exact down here. Now we want to go across the bottom. Up the side. Alright, now the directions did tell me to do the top stitch first, and I thought I was smarter than the directions and didn't. And now that I think about it, I know why. Because I cannot turn this right side out to do the top stitch. So I'm going to have to do the top stitch from the inside, while being careful not to get it caught on anything. So this should be fun. All right. Let's start it down here at an edge, or at a seam, so it doesn't stand out as much. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. That explains why it was being so difficult and not looking right at all. All right, let's try this again. Take this out. Can I get that out? Come on. There we go. Live videos, gotta love them. That's why I do them. We don't pre-record and edit around here. What fun would that be? All right. It's got to be fussy, so I'm not going to mess with it. Let's just do it this way. So you're not going to get a very good view at all from over there. There we go. That's the direction it's supposed to go. No wonder it was looking weird. Now I am keeping my fabric stretched apart so that the top stitch is nice and sharp. And now I'm coming up to the center divider, so I need to be very careful. I keep everybody straight. Don't get anybody in the way. You don't want to stitch things together that aren't supposed to be stitched together. I strongly encourage you to do as the directions say and do this top stitch first before you put the bag together. It is easier. Alright, there we go. So the top stitch inside, all around, doesn't look as good as it could if I had done it correctly. But we do not turn this right side out. This stays the way it is for the rest of our activities. So next we need to cut 2-inch squares in either corner. And again, 2 inches from the edge of the fabric, not from your seam line. I was much more cautious this time, so I made sure I didn't get my clips too far. But still, we are going to use a larger seam allowance, just slightly, so that it matches the seam allowance of the exterior of the bag that we had to use because I got carried away with my scissors. All right. Flat. We're going to press our seams apart. Repeat on the other side. Now, I have not changed my thread color at all if you do not want that dark brown to show through, if I didn't want the dark brown to show through, I could have switched to a cream thread. I don't find that it's that big of a deal. I haven't noticed that the thread color sticks out to my eye. Some others it may. They may notice it right away and go, wait a minute, why'd you use such a dark color on such a light fabric? I wouldn't say it's personal preference, but I'd say it's a matter of opinion as to whether it makes a difference or not. All right, back to a standard stitch. And I am still using my 1/4 inch foot, even though I'm going to go slightly larger. I'm going to use the guide on my stitch plate to see where I'm at. Voila! Interior. Nice and done. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm just playing with the bag. Okay, now we have to put the snap in. So one side of the snap, you only see one side of it, and the other side of the snap, you see both sides of it. So we're only putting in one side of the snap right now. I need, there you are. So this is a heavy decor bond interfacing. And I'm cutting it approximately 1 inch wide. And then 1 inch square. And I need 2 of these. And it does not officially tell you to do this in the directions, but it says it would be suggested. Whenever you use magnets, snaps, rivets, rivets not as much, you want to use some interfacing just to make sure everybody stays together and doesn't tear out of the bag. So this is going to be, oh, you can't see that. You're on the wrong camera. I'm on the wrong camera. This is going to be the exterior of the snap. This is the interior that goes with this piece. So these are going to be put on after the bag is complete. Then we have this that goes on the inside, or the outside, and this that goes on the inside. And then we have tools to do all of the above. All right. Center of the bag. So the center of the bag is about where the seam is. So we're going to go with that. Come on, you can draw. I know you can. And does it tell me how far down? It does. 1 1/4 inches from the lining facing attachment. All right, so 1 1/4 inches up. Now, that being said, we're going to do this all over again, because now I need to attach a piece of interfacing right where I just did that cross. And then we're going to draw the cross again. Because like I said, we want the interfacing to be where the snap is going to go. And it's being fussy. Little water. We're going to put the other piece of 1 inch square on the other side. All right, are you attached? You do not want to attach, do you? Why are you being fussy? There we go. And now just about the same spot on the other side. Now, it was almost dead center, so I could have put this on first without drawing the line, but I wasn't 100% certain how far up the snap was going to go, and I just wanted to make sure. All right. I need you. And again, yeah. One 1/4 inches up. And squared against where the center line is. So now we have our location for our snap. And we need to take a little cut. I never have luck with this one, so let's see if this is going to work or if I need to pull out my other one. No, I'm going to pull out the other one. And I do have this other piece of self-healing mat. It came with a buttonhole kit, so that way I don't cut through both pieces of the fabric. And actually, that being said, I probably should. No, because I need to be able to cut through the other one later. This one just works so much better, and I don't know why. It's got the big handle on it. I think that's what it is. All right. Now I'm going to turn this over because I have found that canvas likes to, well, we know it likes to fray. When I do this, it likes to pull a little bit. So I can see, you probably can't see, a little bit. You can see the little dimple on there. So now I'm going to cut from the canvas side That way our canvas doesn't fray as much. Now I have a hole. And I am, just for sanity's sake later, I'm going to draw a circle here that went through, so I know where I should probably put my snap on the other piece later on. Okay. We need that. No, I'm doing it backwards. That, and that, and this. What did I do with my hammer? There's my hammer. So we have everybody in a row. And then we take our, it's got a, like a hole in it. So it's a rounded gadget. And we make sure it's attached. And then we set this off to the side for later. We're going to need all those gadgets again for when we put that snap on. All right, so there we go. Looks just like a normal snap, just like you would see anywhere else. You can put another piece of interfacing on here if you'd like. With the snaps, I don't think it's as big of a deal because they're pretty smooth. With some of the others, like magnetic, if I were using a magnetic joiner instead of a snap, you might want to consider putting a second piece of interfacing, because they've got like the little tabs when you were in school, the tabs, there's the thing in the middle of a folder that you put the 3-ring paper in, and then you flip the tabs. That's how a magnetic snap works. Or magnetic, yeah, I guess they are magnetic snaps. All right, so I've done this. Now, yeah, so it is a tip in here to put the fusible interfacing in, or yeah, to put the interfacing in. Like I said, I did it because I usually almost always do, but you don't have to. And they suggest a 1.5 inch square, and I just used a 1 inch. But I think my snap is smaller than the size they call for anyway. The male part has to have its back hidden in the fabric layers. It's basically built in, but the front female half goes through all the layers, including the foam, and can therefore be put in last. So, as I said, with the outer, right side out, and the lining also the right way out, drop the lining into the bag and sort the corners out, pushing them gently to make them as neat as possible. And I want the pretty part of the snap to be in the front of the bag. So the male part that we just put in goes in the back of my bag. Make sure your corners are pushed down. Everybody's happy. There we go. Okay, pins. Now we are going to pin the lining and the exterior together. I am opening up seams wherever I can. So I did the one side with the seams. Now I'm doing the other side with the seams. And again, opening them up. So we don't have a really thick area. And matching up our seams. And now you're going to put pins in a couple other places just to kind of make your life a little bit easier. And keep in mind that the handles are kind of heavy, so they want to push things out of the way. And now I am going to baste these together. It does not say to do that. Again, I am a fan of basting, but you don't have to do it. I strongly encourage it at this point. The handles are trying to pull the exterior away. The inside is kind of floppy. It's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier to have this basted together before you try and sew on the binding. Yeah, it just says, when you are happy, bind the top edge with your bias tape. It doesn't say how to do that. Now we are going to be doing the round bag, so we need to get rid of the table. Oops. I knocked my foot off. And I am going to tell my machine I'm basting. If you don't have that option, just set your stitch length to the longest it can be. I am going to do this at 1/8 of an inch because our seam is going to be 1/4 of an inch in a little bit here. And as you can see, my handle is already trying to get in the way. So you need to make sure you get it out of the way. And now it's pulling at my fabric. So now you see why I'm basting, because I want everybody straight and square. I did not do this with the last bag I did, and I ended up having a heck of a time sewing on my binding. So I decided this time it would be a good idea to baste. All right. Now it says in the directions, now come back to the top edge of the bag and make sure that the edges match and trim them if you need to. So like I trimmed the edges of the lining, you could do that if the top doesn't match. Excuse me, my top matched. When you are happy, bind the top edge with your bias tape. It gives you no direction on how to use bias tape whatsoever. I thought that was odd when I saw it the first time, but hey, that's the way they did it. So, bias tape. What you do is, you take it, you fold it in half. And you press it. And I'm hoping, because I'm using canvas, this isn't going to be too much of a hassle. The directions do show using the bias tape, or it in the same fabric as the exterior. It can be a contrasting color. You don't have to use the same thing. I am, but you don't have to. It actually, in my case, might look really cool if I had like a burgundy color, because that I've got the burgundy accent leather. It would probably look really cool if I had burgundy, a burgundy bias tape around the top. I don't believe I have any burgundy, so we're not going to be doing that, but I think you could pull that off and it would look kind of cool. And I still have the dot where the snap goes. I do. Okay, good. Yes. So the bag at the bottom, the flap at the bottom, is not attached to the bottom of the bag. It is free at the bottom and at the top. There would be more steps involved if you wanted it attached at the bottom as well as at the top. I'm pulling out all these extra pieces of canvas that are just floating around in the bottom of the bag. Okay. So now we're going to take our bias tape and we're going to go around, and I'm going to start at an edge. How wide is my bias tape? I don't remember. 3/4, so 1.5 inch bias tape. Okay. And you pin the raw edge of the bias tape, because we fold it in half, so you've got a finished edge of bias tape. Pin the raw edge of the bias tape to the raw edge of the bag. And again, this is why I like having basted this already. I'm not worried about whether the other two pieces are coming apart or not. I think that's just about right. that'll work. All right, back to the machine we go. Oh, this canvas. There's little pieces of thread everywhere. All right. Oops, I'm still on. That was wrong. I was still on the basting length. So since I basted, I want to make sure I do get my 1/4 inch seam. That way I cover up my basting stitch. And if I don't cover up the basting stitch, I'll just have to do some seam ripping to make it look pretty. Come on. My handle's getting caught. And I'm just doing my standard 1/4 inch around at where the two seams, two raw edges join together. Come on, there we go. Okay, so now we need to join our two edges together. To do that, we overlap them by however wide the bias tape is. And in this case, the bias tape is 1.5 inches wide. And I keep knocking over that particular thread. So they need to overlap by 1.5 inches. So I want to be as far back over here as I can with my bias. So I am going to cut I'm going to measure out 1.5 inches. And trim this down. And now I am going to right sides together. Stitch across. All right, I'm going to need some pins. Usually I try and do this without pins, but I'm a little too close to the edge here, and this fabric's still trying to fray on me all the time. Right, I need one more right here. Okay. Put the bottom underneath as best as I can, because this handle wants to be challenging. Get the rest of the bag out of the way. See if I can get my angle. Without wrinkling up the fabric. All right. Trim you down. Please tell me I did this the right way. Oh, I did. Excellent. It's a little tight. Let's start again. Come on, bag. Straighten out. Alrighty, now we have our binding all the way around our bag. Back over to the close-up so you can see what I'm talking about. So we went all the way around, the right sides together and the folded side out. Now we're going to take our binding and go up. Oops, you can't see what I'm doing. Ah, the camera. There we go. We're going to take our binding and go up and over. Now on a quilt, you normally would leave it rounded. Because of the bag, what we're doing here, we're actually covering up the seam. So we're going to go down all the way around. Now it does show doing it like you would a quilt, but I can't see how that's going to work. So I am going to do it my way. I would think that it would need to be cut wider to work the way they want it to. A 1.5 inch binding is just not going to work, in my opinion. And again, we've got to keep our, oh, you can't see. We've got to keep our straps out of the way. All right, I'm going back to this way. I can't do it that way. You've seen it. You've got the idea, right? Alright, so now we have it all the way pinned all the way around, and we are going to top stitch without actually top stitching. We're kind of top stitching, but kind of not. We're going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to start at a seam and go around. I am not going to change my stitch length or anything like that, because I do want the stitches to be tighter. So that it's sturdy. But I am only going to do 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So on the inside of my foot. All right. Let's see. I have strings coming out of my ears here, so let's get that all trimmed up. I need littler scissors. Okay. Got it all trimmed up. Last but not least, we need to put in our final piece of the snap. Okay. Let's cut our hole through all these layers. So we've got canvas, heavy-duty interfacing, fusible fleece, and another piece of canvas. Actually, we can see. Excellent. Wonderful. All right. Well, you probably want to see what I'm doing, don't you? All right. So now let's cover up our cutter. And we need the doohickey. Actually, it goes that way, I think, this time. No, it does not. All right, so we have our snap. What I call the pretty side. So it's the side that's visible. Come on. Okay, so we put it through the hole. And now we take this side and doohickey. That's not the doohickey I want. This is the doohickey I want. So this one has a spot thingy on it. All right. Okay, doohickey out. Come on, snap. Don't fail me now. And we snap. And now you see why we like the interfacing, because oh, that broke. That snap did not work. Alrighty. Okay, let's see here. Oh, that's tearing. Well, and look, even with the interfacing, it's tearing. All right. Well, that didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Let me see. Did I do the wrong side? Put that in there. I don't use snaps terribly often, I will admit to that. Most of the time I use magnetic clasps. So maybe I did it the wrong way. I don't think so. Nope, that's going to be wrong. I can tell it's wrong. It has to be this one. Nope, that's the cutter. Well, we'll have to work on that and get back to you on how to make a snap work, because now it just wants to be fussy. going to do the exact same thing I just did with the other one. Well, maybe not. All right, well, with or without the snaps. The snap is a good thing. I like having the snap there because it separates the two bottles, but I do want to show you. So we have our bag. We have 2 bottles of regular wine. So 750 milliliter bottles, standard bottles of wine. They fit, they hide, handle works, everybody's nice. And even if you have the larger bottles of Prosecco, you can still fit 2 bottles in here. Now they do stick up and they are fatter around the bottom, but you can still carry even the fatter bottles. And go to your party and have a good time. And if you need to, carry your corkscrew, or in the case that we do in our wine club, carry our $5, well, $10 actually, 5 per person. So we've completed our wine bag. We have our handles with our nice leather accent. We have our zipper pocket in the front. I was afraid that the wine print would be too big, but it turned out it's actually a really nice print for this. And other than the snap, which is just being challenging, everything seems to be all right. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, remind, thumbs up, whatever it is you need to do. And we will see you again next time when I'm making a wallet.